You wake up again. Another day. Another act in the play you never auditioned for. You breathe, you move, you smile, but somewhere deep inside, the question gnaws. Why? Why this life? Why this endless repetition? What does this world really hold for me? The sun rises, indifferent. Its light floods the streets, but it doesn't illuminate anything that matters. People move around you, laughing, talking, hustling, and yet you feel invisible. You are a ghost, not because others don't see you, but because you cannot see yourself. You can't remember who you were before this endless cycle began. You can't remember why you even try. Every step you take feels borrowed, a borrowed motion in someone else's script. The coffee you drink, the commute you endure, the words you speak, they are all repetitions of gestures that no one cares about. And the hardest part is that you do care, desperately. You care enough to wake up, care enough to perform, care enough to keep breathing, even though the answer to the question that haunts you, why am I here, remains stubbornly silent. The world does not pause for your despair. It does not bow to your questions. The laughter of strangers, the honking of cars, the music of the city, it all moves as if nothing is wrong, as if nothing matters. And you are left alone with the weight of consciousness, with the unbearable clarity that the universe does not owe you answers. You try distractions, phones, shows, scrolling endlessly, numbing every second of your awareness. You try routines, habits, jobs, meaningless conversations, anything to dull the ache of recognition. But nothing sticks. Nothing fills the hollow. The question returns, sharper each time. Who am I? What am I doing here? Why continue at all? And in the quiet, the silence grows. Your own heartbeat becomes a drum, echoing the absurd rhythm of existence. Camus called it the absurd, the collision between humanity's desperate search for meaning and the universe's cruel indifference. You feel it now. You live it. Every morning, every step, every breath reminds you of it. The absurd does not negotiate. It does not apologize. It simply is. Nietzsche warned of the vertigo of freedom. The collapse of old gods, old values, and sacred stories has left you free, terrifyingly free. Free to choose, free to act, free to assign meaning. And yet that freedom itself is a weight heavier than any chain. To decide without guidance is to stand on the edge of a cliff, staring into the void, wondering if the next step matters at all. And it doesn't answer you. It never answers. Kierkegaard described despair as the sickness unto death, not illness of the body, but illness of the spirit. You know it. The quiet anger, the inward frustration, the gnawing realization that every action, every thought, every desire is swallowed by emptiness. You stare at your own hands and wonder why they keep moving, why they obey commands they do not understand, why they participate in a world that seems absurd beyond repair. You could stop. You could lay down. You could quit everything. You could let the question consume you completely. And yet here you are, breathing, moving, acting, pretending. You do not know why, and maybe you never will. The act itself is all that remains. Survival, repetition, motion. And yet the question persists. Why am I here? The absurd is not abstract. It is anatomy. It curls in your stomach. It tightens in your chest. It pulses in your veins. And yet there is a clarity in its cruelty. There is a truth in it that cannot be ignored. No comfort, no distraction, no illusion can shield you. The question is there, gnawing at every corner of your mind. Why continue? Why not stop at all? You see it in others too, in the faces of strangers, in the quiet resignation of coworkers, in the polite smiles of friends who are quietly lost. They too carry the same invisible weight. Their laughter is hollow. Their conversations are echoes. Their gestures are rehearsed. They too are trapped in the theater of existence, performing a script that no one wrote for them. And still you move. You perform. You breathe. You live. Not because life is beautiful, not because hope exists, but because the act itself has become the defiance. The absurd confronts you, offers no answers, and yet, you refuse to look away. You face it. You stare into the void. You recognize the futility. And somehow, that recognition itself is a kind of power. The quiet rebellion begins here, not with grand gestures, not with eloquence, not with comfort. It begins with awareness, with the refusal to pretend that the question is irrelevant, with the acceptance that the void exists and that you are awake enough to see it. The world will not pause, life will not stop, time will not wait, and yet in this defiance, you find the faintest spark of something almost alive. Consciousness, awareness, the refusal to surrender completely. You wake up again, another day, another act in the play you never auditioned for. And the question echoes, louder now, sharper. Why? Why this life? Why do I keep going? You do not answer. You only feel. You only confront. You only exist in the tension, the unbearable weight of consciousness. And in this confrontation, in the refusal to look away, there is a subtle, trembling power. The absurd does not vanish. The universe remains silent, and yet you are awake. You are present. And for now, that is enough. You wake up again, not because there is hope, not because anyone cares, not because life promised meaning while you slept. You wake up because existence refuses to let you vanish quietly. And still, the question claws at you, sharper than ever. Why am I here? The world continues, indifferent. People move through their days as if someone answers their questions, as if life has purpose stitched into every action. But it doesn't. It never has. The universe is silent. It does not love you. It does not hate you. It does not even notice you. And in that silence lies the most unbearable truth. The only meaning, the only weight, is the one you carry alone. The ones who see, who understand, who stare at the emptiness and call it by name are always ignored. The philosophers, the poets, the thinkers who dared to question, to speak the unbearable truth, they were dismissed, ridiculed, forgotten. And now that inheritance falls to you. You are awake. You understand. And in understanding, you are alone. Every routine becomes absurd when viewed through that lens. You wake, you work, you eat, you move, you pretend. And for what? For whom? Every gesture feels meaningless, every goal hollow, every smile a mask stretched over the void. And the knowledge hits like ice. Even if you succeed, even if you achieve everything, it does not fill the emptiness. There is no fullness, no completion, no satisfaction in reality. Only continuation. You ask yourself, who am I? Why am I doing this? What is the point? And there is no answer. Only silence. The silence of the streets, the silence of the sky, the silence of the people who pass you by, without ever seeing you. The silence of the world that will continue, indifferent, whether you exist or not. The absurdity presses down like gravity. You see people performing, acting as if life has answers. They buy, they consume, they love, they compete, but all the while they ignore the void behind it. And you realize that seeing clearly is a kind of torment. You cannot return to ignorance. You cannot pretend. You cannot accept lies that the rest of the world clings to so desperately. Every truth you understand isolates you further. You notice the fragility of every convention, the emptiness of every promise, the futility behind every social expectation. You see people driven by invisible scripts, and when you point it out, the world dismisses you. Your clarity is a threat. Your awareness is discomfort. Your questions are inconvenient. And still, the questions remain relentless. Why am I here? What does this world hold for me? Who am I? Why am I doing this? Why can't I just stop? No one answers. The world will not answer. It never has. It moves on, blind, indifferent, leaving you to carry the weight of understanding alone. And that weight is immense, heavy, unyielding, inescapable. You watch the world continue in its mechanical rhythm. People laugh, argue, create, destroy, and all without ever noticing the truth beneath their actions. They chase illusions of purpose, of success, of fulfillment. They worship rituals, routines, ideas that fail to hold water when examined. And you, awake and aware, feel the futility of it all. Every accomplishment loses meaning when you see the pattern. Every connection feels fragile, every achievement temporary, every joy fleeting. Life is not a gift, it is a stage on which you perform, uninvited, unobserved, often unrecognized. And the realization is crushing. No applause, no reward, no acknowledgement exists outside your own mind. The universe does not care. And those who tried to tell this truth before you were silenced or ignored. And yet here you are, still breathing, still moving, still performing. You are awake, you are aware, you see the absurdity in everything. The world does not answer, it does not justify, it does not explain. It simply exists. And that is the inheritance of clarity, the relentless, unflinching knowledge that life is indifferent and meaning must be forged, or you will drown in the silence. And here you are, caught between understanding and despair. You cannot unsee the absurdity. You cannot unhear the silence. You cannot unfeel the emptiness. And yet you are still here. You still breathe. You still act. The questions remain. The silence remains. And the weight of awareness presses down without mercy, without comfort, without end. Because that is the inheritance of being awake. To see clearly, to understand, to feel the absurdity in every moment, to ask the unanswerable questions, knowing they will remain unanswered, to carry the burden of insight in a world that will never recognize it. And the only choice left is how to live with it. Not whether to live, but how, knowing fully that life is indifferent, meaning is absent unless forged by your own hands, and the silence will never answer. You feel it now, that unbearable weight, the silence pressing against every thought. You asked before and the universe did not answer. You asked again and still, nothing. Why am I here? Not as a curiosity, not as a fleeting thought, but as a relentless hammer against your skull. It echoes in your bones, it rattles in your chest, it follows you through empty rooms, through crowded streets, through every moment you pretend to exist. The world spins, uncaring. People move, laugh, argue, chase dreams you cannot recognize, and you see them clearly now, blind to the abyss beneath their feet, numb to the quiet emptiness that hums behind every action. You see the absurdity, the hollowness, the fragile scaffolding of meaning they cling to, and you are alone in seeing it. Everything you thought mattered begins to collapse. Work, recognition, love, achievement, all illusions stretched thin over the void. And the question tears through everything. What is the point of continuing if nothing responds? Every step feels heavier, every breath feels borrowed, and still the silence watches. Indifferent, eternal. No one will tell you the answers. No guide exists. You are left with yourself, staring at the absurdity, forced to confront it. You notice how easily the world distracts itself, how it buries the emptiness in noise, habit, ritual. But these are lies. You cannot lie to yourself. You cannot unsee the truth of the void. Why am I here? What is this existence I am forced to navigate? What does this world hold for me that is worth the weight of every moment? The questions echo endlessly, each one unanswered, each one sharper than the last. And you realize something terrifying. The absurdity isn't external. It isn't a problem someone else created. It isn't a lapse in society or a lapse in the universe. It resides entirely in you. Awareness is the burden. Consciousness is the cage. And now you are awake. You see the silence everywhere. It inhabits the pauses between conversations. It floats in the space between your heartbeat and your thoughts. It follows you through every trivial interaction, every meaningless task. You cannot escape it. You cannot dilute it. You cannot ignore it. The void is patient, infinite, and absolute. And yet, within that unbearable awareness, there is something undeniable, a clarity so sharp it cuts through the illusion of all else. You are the only one who can give meaning to the meaningless. Nothing outside will offer it. No person, no institution, no tradition, no cosmic truth will fill the emptiness for you. The absurd is indifferent, but it is honest. It tells you plainly,
All else is optional. All else is borrowed. All else is fleeting. You understand finally why philosophers called this the ultimate question. Not metaphysics, not morality, not beauty or love, none of it matters if you cannot answer the one unflinching question. Why continue? Everything else collapses beneath it. Every story, every system, every pursuit. They are all distractions from the unbearable silence that asks only one thing. Are you awake? Are you alive? Or are you hiding? And you feel it now. The vertigo of understanding, the dizzying, crushing freedom of awareness. To exist fully conscious is to hold a knife edge between despair and defiance. Nothing will guide you, nothing will protect you, and that is the dark gift the absurd offers, the knowledge that existence is yours entirely, for better or worse, empty or full, painful or numb. You walk through the streets again. You hear the laughter, you see the motions, you touch the surfaces of life that everyone else treats as sacred, and you understand their meanings are borrowed, their truths are illusions, and your question remains louder than ever. Why am I here? What is this for? No one will answer. The streets, the sky, the walls of your room, silent. The world moves on, uncaring, indifferent, endless. And now you are fully awake, fully aware, fully alone with the question, why am I here? And maybe that is all that matters, that you ask it, that you feel it, that you carry it through every step, every breath, every moment. The universe cannot take that from you. The void cannot silence it. And in the relentless and unyielding confrontation with meaninglessness, you discover the most profound reality. You are the only witness to your own existence. Nothing else validates it, nothing else defines it. You are awake. The abyss is infinite, the question repeats, and still, you breathe. Because maybe that's the cruelest miracle of all, to exist, to think, to question, and yet, to go on. If this echoed something inside you, if it made you feel the weight of existence, then the next truth you need to see waits in the next video. Why being born is the cruelest thing. You think you've seen the darkness? You've only seen the surface. And if this video reached you, if it stirred something in your mind, your heart, or your soul, consider subscribing, sharing it with someone who might need to hear it, and become part of a space that dares to ask the questions everyone else avoids.